The teaching experience is 13 years UG and 15 years PG. He has published one books, Fun-Filled Fitness for Kids, 15 papers and one article published, as well as chapters in book published. She has guided for the MSc and PhD students. He has completed UGC minor research project completed 1999. Also, on the panel as reviewer of research papers for the International Journal of Development Origins in Health and Disease and International Journal Public Health and Nutrition. Then reviewer of abstract for international conference and national conferences, several international, national and local conferences, seminars and workshops attended. And she published a paper presented at national and international conferences in India and abroad. As well as she has completed research project undertaken. She has a lot of professional bodies as a member. Some of the Joint Secretary, Indian Dietetics Association, Mumbai chapter. Then Treasurer, IAPN, Mumbai chapter. Then International Society of Developmental Origins of Health and Diseases. Life member of Nutrition Society of India. And then life member of All India Association for Advancing Research in Obesity. Life member Association of Food Scientists and Technologists in India, Mumbai chapters. She has delivered a lot of lectures as a resource person. More than 30 lectures delivered throughout India. Conducted workshops, moderated events, panelists for the panel discussion, as well as chairperson of conferences, invited as speaker at seminars conference. She has a lot of lengthy biodata, but limited of time period. Ma'am is well-known person in food and nutrition faculty. So today I request to our well-known resource person, please give your valuable lectures. Ma'am, please continue.
Thank you, sir. I think I should have shortened the biodata a little bit and sent it, but I was really busy with that. Okay, I'll be allowed to share the screen.
Yes, oh ma'am.
Yes. Can everybody see this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Just for keeping my connectivity, I will switch off my video so that I will not have any problems in connectivity.
Okay, no problem.
And a very good morning to everybody here. And I'm extremely thankful to the organizers for inviting me to give this presentation. And thank you very much, particularly to Dr. Anuja Madam, who's a good friend of mine. And when she asked me itself, I said, yes, definitely I will. And today, I'm going to speak to you on ethics in social science research. It's not moving ahead, na? Okay. So what am I going to speak on? The ethics in research is a very, very big topic, and I will not be able to complete everything. But I will give you brief information on the history, what it is, social sciences. I will not talk of clinical research, mainly social science. Why should we be concerned with it? There are certain challenges that we Indians face. And what is an informed consent, questionnaire, interviews, etc., etc., etc. So normally also when we talk, we say ethics are the moral principles of any behavior. Many a times we tell people, this is not right. This is wrong. All this we are talking about is the moral principles that a person has. And research ethics particularly talks of what is morally right and legally right in research. With the importance that is given to research today in education, there is increased importance for ethical considerations. Because if we are going to do research, we have to make sure that we are going to do ethical research. Also, whether it is social science, whether it is clinical, or whether it is quantitative science, everywhere in research, we have human participants. And therefore, we have to protect the legal aspects as well as the data which is collected needs protection. And therefore, ethical research is become important. Another thing is a lot of advances have taken place technologically. And these, therefore, have called for ethical issues which may arise because of a certain usage. I'm not going back in history too much, but in 1966, the first research ethics committee was set up in UK. 1966 is a long way off, and the history behind that research committee was, the ethics committee was, all the time the wars, the World War I, World War II, and certain other things which were happening in the world as they were affecting human life, they brought about the first research ethics committee. But not till 1991, the Department of Health guidelines on local research ethics committee was finally published. This was followed by the creation of multi-center research ethics committees in 1997. And even till 2010 or 15, the ethics committees were just coming up in India. Now we find that we need to have a clearance from an ethics committee while doing any type of research. And therefore, now there are many more research committees, ethics committees, which have come up. So, we are talking of what is research. I think we all know it's an inquiry into something. We are talking of what is ethics. We are talking of the right and the wrong. And we are talking what is research ethics. Looking at that, the definitions that have been given, it is a discipline dealing with what is the proper course of action. We know research is not a one-time thing. We know that research has many processes. We know that research has many steps. And throughout each process and throughout each step, we need to do something which is right. A branch of philosophy which will look at what is good and what is bad. An obligation that we have towards others, in the sense we are the obligation that we have towards society when we are going to do research. Why? Because in the process of research also we are going to affect the lives of people. The results that we may get, those might affect the society, and so it's an obligation to do right. Also the moral philosophy. And so we define ethics as something which is, like I've said the first time, what is the proper course of action. Now let us look at the key features of scientific research. First one, if you look at generalizability of findings, means the sample that is used in research will reflect the broader population. India is a very, very largely populated country, and we cannot do research on everybody. We cannot do research on a society. We cannot do research on a caste. We cannot do research on a typical age group. So what do? We do the research and we apply those results to a broader population. And so what we have to think is whether our scientific research is going to be generalized for people. Then you have to look at universality and objectivity, whether this principle or the objectives of one research can be applied to other researches, or can it be the base for other researches? And so we are not talking of copying one study to the other. We are talking of using the objectives and seeing whether those objectives can be applied in different settings. You have to talk about the scientific rigor. That means whatever claims are done, if they have to be tested, whether you'll get the same result. That means whether you are reporting the truth. So when you have done a research and you have noted your observations, you have to write very truthful observations, because somebody inquires against it. You might find that the person says, I'll give you an example. Let us look at a sociology research. You go to a group of people and you ask them 4 or 5 questions and they give you certain answers. You may not report the same answers, but when somebody else goes and asks the same questions, they will get different answers. Then it is a question whether what you have reported is the truth or not. Now, in a society, when 5 questions are asked, ABC answers are got. Another time, the same 5 questions might not give you ABC, they might give you ABD. That means 1 or 2 responses may differ. But what we have to say is, maximum answers which we have got, are they truthfully reported so that they will be accepted? And most important scientific research is the original research work. Original ideas backed with good evidence and having certain logic. Now, when we said previously, we said replicability, whether we can repeat a similar study. But why will it become original? If you repeat it, if you take the objectives, you try to apply the objectives of one study to a different setting or to a different, so there has to be something different. Another example I'll give you. Suppose I'm trying to find out something about a tribal area. I'm looking at their lifestyle pattern. And I can use the same principle in a different tribe, provided the setting is different and other factors are different. For example, for a tribe, the environment will be different, the geographical location will be different, the availability of resources will be different. So if I'm doing that, then it can be still taken as originality of research. Today, we do not talk of original research in the sense like anybody. No, starting of a theory which hundreds of years ago people have done for us, that is not what the research we are doing. What we are doing is, we are trying to apply those principles and see whether the results match what they had got, or are they little different. Okay. So, therefore, research ethics is a code of guidelines on how to conduct scientific research in a morally accepted way, and the principles and standards that the researchers have to uphold for knowledge construction of whatever new knowledge is achieved. Sir?
Hello, ma'am.
Sir, everything is heard properly?
No problem. Continue, ma'am. Okay,
And
okay.
if I'm going very fast or slow, or if somebody doesn't understand, I need to be told.
Okay.
So, coming back to ethical considerations, we have to look at ethical considerations, like I said previously, in the process, in the entire process of research, we have to look at ethical considerations. So there are 6 stages. One is conceptualization and design. So when we are thinking of research, when anybody who is applying for a research project is going to do their PhD, is going to do their postdoc or anything, and the first thoughts that come before you design a study has to weigh whether there is no risk, whether it is safe for participants, whether there is scientific merit in it. So at the conceptualization stage itself, we have to give ethical considerations. Then when we come to the next process, when we are recruiting participants, when we are selecting a sample, it has to be that the sample is informed. Is the sample is told what questionnaire are you going to answer? What discussion are you going to be part of? And there is a right to privacy, meaning even if you select them and take information from them, you should not share that information with anybody. Another thing, you should never disclose the identity of the person, and you have to preserve their rights. Then, when actual intervention, what is intervention? We are not talking of giving something and seeing whether if I've given something to eat, what is the effect. We are talking of intervention of questions. We are talking of maybe in psychology, there's an intervention of a test. So there is an intervention and a measurement procedure. Even when there is a interview method, or there is a survey method, or there is a questionnaire which is used, that is called as an intervention, because the way you ask the questions, the way you are making the questions to people, and then you're measuring or you're recording their responses, all of it have to be safe for the participant. So after this, we come to the results. When we come to the results, like I have said, right to privacy, they have to be confidential and they have to be anonymous. What is the meaning of confidential and anonymous? That means if I am doing a research study, I will not give my results to somebody else to say that you go and see whether they are okay or not. You cannot, you have to protect your data. Anonymity, because even if you are showing your result to somebody, you should never say it is your own, because there will be comments, might influence you, might create a bias in your mind. We are going to talk about those things later, and therefore keep it confidential. After the results, once we get the results, what do all researchers do? Keep your thesis aside and okay, maybe publish a paper or so. Leave it. Ideally, ethical research should involve some benefit for the participants or the communities. So if you have done a research on even checking that the government scheme which is available to this society, is it good or not? And you have derived your results. You may say it is very good. You may say, no, it is not reaching the society. Whatever it is, you have to make sure that you inform the participants what is the outcome, and even try to do something so that they get the benefit. Then comes publications, something which is still a problem for many. We do a lot of research is happening in India. Unfortunately, the publications are not matching the research. So we need to publish. Why do we need to publish? I'm sure you have a session on it. But what I want to say is that only when we publish, people know your research. People don't know what you've done. People don't know what you have got. And so we need to publish. So what are the obligations of a researcher? The person should be honest, should be objective, and should have integrity. Very honest. If I have taken, let us say, 100 participants for my research, and I'm stuck at 80 and I'm still not getting 20, I have to honestly say, I need more time to do the research. I cannot make the figure out instead of 80, 80, I just make it 100, copy paste something and say, I have completed. Objective. What is the objective? When you're doing social science research is more of a qualitative research. And so, even if you have one objective and you have many observations, how much to take in your data and how much to keep has to be decided. Because if you're, let us say, if you're researching the political scenario of a state or of a country, what are you looking at? You cannot be looking at everything. Maybe you're looking at the economic policies of those politicians, then stick to the objectives. And integrity means throughout your research process, be very, very ethical in every step. And so seek a consent, respect people, cultures, values, religions, economic status, and every other thing. Sometimes socioeconomic status is affecting availability of education, health, and so many things. But we have to respect them whenever we choose our participants. Whoever the participant may be has to get the same respect that you're giving to any other participant. Then confidentiality I've already spoken to, and should avoid experiments which may be a threat to participants and researchers. Let's take an example. If I take a science example, maybe you're researching some plant chemical, and by mistake, if it is consumed, it might be poisonous. More than that, if you're researching into certain religions, and you put across certain facts which might cause fights between them, then it is not correct. So nothing which is a threat. Your research has to be simple enough to give you the data, for you to use the data for the benefit of the society without causing any unrest or any harm to anyone. Now, principles of research ethics. So I know this is very, very, what do you say, very theoretical, but I have got cases which we will discuss. Okay. So when it says to justice, researchers should not place any group of people at a risk just for the benefit of others. That means the risk and the benefit should be distributed equally to all. All 1,000 participants, if you have, each 1,000 participants should have the same percentage of risk and the same percentage of benefit while being a participant of your study. We have said respect participants, respect sponsors. Very few people get sponsors, or very few people get grants. And believe me, it is very nice if somebody is going to support you for research. The first thing that you need to do is respect them and follow their advice. There are times when there are conditions placed while they give you the sponsorship. Make sure that you follow those points, because finally they are giving you something. Respect for communities from where the participant comes. So your participants may be from one community, but linked to that community might be many other society people, and make sure everybody gets the respect, and respect the knowledge and the academic community. Respect people who are the educated people in those participants. Why? Because suppose I'm doing a study on, let us say, women and women of the rural area. We cannot say all of them are illiterate. There may be some who are graduates, there may be some who are school completed, but all have to get the same respect. Even if they are academically better, they have to get the same respect. Then benefits. Now, what is the researcher is responsible for? Like I said, the well-being. Nothing of harmful should happen to the participant. So we have to weigh. If I have any experiment in my hand, I have to try out the experiment and see that it is not at risk for a participant. And this is where pilot studies come into play. Then research should be justified. Why am I doing research? Very often in PhD vivas, the first question asked is, why did you choose this topic? Well, justify it, because somewhere the benefit to society has to be linked. And how they will benefit has to be very, very clear in your research protocol. Coming back to pilot studies, I have really not put anything of a pilot study here, but I want to tell you that pilot studies are studies done on small samples to try out different tools. Your questionnaire is a tool. Maybe some other focus group discussion will be a tool. Try it out and see that it is helping you to get the data that you want without causing any problem. And that is where that is a type of weighing the benefits of risk and whether it will be good. Another way of understanding research ethics is understanding what is wrong, what is wrongly done. So not respecting, not keeping anonymity, not respecting the rights of vulnerable groups. Who are vulnerable? Children, mentally handicapped, aged, illiterate, prisoners, sometimes the one with low socioeconomic status. All these are vulnerable groups because a normal society, we have layers in our society, and a normal society might look down upon somebody, and that should not happen. And again, we have to respect our environment as well. What environment are we talking about? We are talking about the environment which is the trees and everything. We are also talking environments of an organization. In a college, there is a staff room. In a college, there is a classroom. So all the consideration of the environment of those places also has to be considered. If you don't have the consideration, it is unethical. Deception. What is deception? You hide something. So I have collected data, and at the end of it, I decide that 10% of this data I'm not going to show anyone. That withholding is not right. Misleading the participants. Many a times today, a lot of people have, when you're doing research, you'll find, particularly in the pandemic, there were Google forms which were sent out to people, fill up and send back. Those Google forms, people stop responding at times. You know, there are many. When our postgraduate girls are also doing, they said, ma'am, nobody's responding. Just because they should respond, many of them started telling them, you do this and this you will get. Please fill this form for me, you will get this, which is false, because you were not going to give them anything. And why are you misleading the participants just to participate? Plagiarism. I'm not going to touch this topic at all because I'm sure you'll be having something on plagiarism. Conducting research which does not have a scientific base. That means you choose a topic which has no statement only which is going to be researched. For example, I'm going to study, let us say, if I take a social or psychology example, I will say I'm going to study all the normal people, whether they have any anxiety. I'm already saying they're normal. And why am I studying anxiety? With whom will you study anxiety? In an age group. Because that is when you're saying that I'm trying to find out whether, let us say, 20 to 40-year-old women, whether they have high levels of anxiety or not. But once I say all normal people, that means all people who are not coming into any problem, and those only I'm going to search anxiety. How will it be? Then two things will happen. One is you might start falsifying things and reporting that, okay, so many people said they were anxious. And what will happen? It is not a research problem. When you're doing research, it is very good to write down research problems and think about the research problems. Half of them you will check out because you will realize that this is not useful. Oh, sorry. Of course, objectivity we've said. Misinterpretation of results I'm going to talk about. My objective was to study 20 to 30-year-old men. My objective was to study that what is the to study only the ones working in a government office, and my objective was to study, let us say, their work pressure linked to their pay scale. Now, when I'm doing such a thing, I might get a result which says that a lot of work is there and the pay is not enough. But if I find out that nobody is going to publish my paper, I might misinterpret my results, and and therefore I will make results something which will be published. No, because many a times when you publish, you will be asked to supply the raw data. Very, very few times they ask you to give the raw data. And what happens in the raw data? They will find out that your raw data says something and your actual interpretation of results you've shown as something different. Similarly, do not fabricate or falsify data. Why? Because like I said, If I say that I'm talking about children, the marks that they get, if they get the marks, somebody has got 40% marks, somebody has got 50% marks. In my class, maybe many have got only 50% marks, and I've got to show my authorities that I'm a very good teacher. I will put everybody as 60%. Actual marks may be different, but in the report I may write this. Not right. Also, authorship for publication. Well, plagiarism, will be talking about that. Now, clinical and social science research, I'm not going to talk of clinical research, but social science research, systematic recording and analysis that can lead to generalized principles and theories, will be able to make policies, can predict behavior, can predict changes in society. What does it consist of? It consists of a review of literature, the review of data, deciding how to collect the data, whether it is interviews, whether it is focus groups, observations, maybe case studies, or certain tests. Psychological tests are there. Sociological tests are not actual tests, but there may be a certain type of principle which is applied to it. Now, in all these steps, your first step of review of literature has to be very, very strong. Now, what is the ethical consideration in a review of literature? Very simple. See your objective and search for literature which is very close to your objective. That is ethical review of literature, because you are going to collect, you are going to write the review, and you're going to constantly use it to compare your results with. So if I'm going to do research on the aged 70 to 80-year-old people, 70 to 80, and all the research papers that I suggest, I just type in my search as old age and I take anybody who comes above 60, not right. Select papers which are talking of the age group of 70 to 80, because their physiological changes are there, their financially they are dependent, they have societal changes, they are there which they may not be mixing in the society well because of some disability. So considering all these things, your review of literature has to be very, very ethical. Data, once the data you collect data ethically, and then review the data. What is review the data? Compare and see how it is matching with the studies which you have collected. And depending on the research question and the design of the study, make sure that you are going to stick to ethical principles throughout. Just a little revision: social research, problem identification, problem definition, development of a theoretical framework, hypothesis formulation or research questions. You can form a hypothesis or you can write research questions. Have a research design. When it comes to research design, the types of research will come into play. Whether you're having a qualitative or a quantitative data, whether you're having an epidemiological study, or whether you're having, let us say, a cross-sectional study or a longitudinal study, all these things will come. Your phase 6 will be data collection, data analysis, and report writing. So, why I've been talking of research ethics all the time? Why is it finally necessary? It's a professional responsibility and avoid reputational damage. So when you are a researcher, you are known that this person is in research. Make sure that you preserve your reputation, because it can be harmful. Wrong practices in research can be harmful to participants, researchers, institutions, and communities. And avoid litigation. Today, everybody is going to court. Very easy. Lot of lawyers around us and lot of litigation. It's very easy that you can put a case or somebody puts a case against you. But if you do ethical things, you will never have a problem and you can avoid a litigation. So, If we want to avoid any problems, let us look at informed consent. We have said that when we select participants, we have to select them correctly depending on our objectives. And before we start data collection, we have to inform them what they are part of. So obtain a consent. There are formats for informed contents, consent forms, and there are formats for how to prepare a sheet for information to be given. All that is there. So obtain a consent by a participant, by a well-informed participant means each participant has to be told, this is the research, this is the questions which will be asked, this is the purpose, and will you, and it's a consent. Will you agree to share the information with us? Also has to be asked. So nature of research procedure, scientific purpose, risks and benefit of the study. Also, informed consent should be given without forcing the participant or without influencing the participant in any manner. So you can't tell a person, no, you read this sheet, you must participate in my research, you will be convinced. No. Select your sample, give them your information sheet, let them read it, then explain to them, and then allow them to decide whether they want to participate or not. Also, the participants' understanding of the research aim and objectives can be obtained by laying out details familiar to the participant. So if I'm writing research, a research question, can I say that the purpose of my research is to obtain information about this caste and these things? No, keep it simple. Caste information needed, 1, 2, 3. Maybe number of people, how many women may be there, how many men may be there. Very simple. They have to understand. So even your aims and objectives should be written briefly. In your research study, you will write as many long sentences as you want. When you're making an information sheet, keep it brief and keep it absolutely purposeful so that the participants understand. So before commencement of the study, assess your part, assess the area where you want to do research, assess which age group you're looking at, think about it, identify the risk and benefits to them, and like I said, do a pilot test. Before you actually begin, information it should be presented, understanding is to be assessed, and during the study, all ethical principles to be followed means, suppose there might be one person who is not comfortable answering certain questions, you cannot force the person. You have to keep them comfortable. You may even tell them that it's okay if you don't answer this. Now here comes a question, you will say, but I'm going to miss data. Well, just because you need data, you cannot force them to give you if they are give you the data if they are uncomfortable. So informed consent should have description, risk, aims, risks, benefits, confidentiality. There has to be a statement saying the information obtained by you will be kept absolutely confidential, and we have to make sure that we are protecting their rights. Also, most of the research studies, we do not give remuneration or compensation for anything. But suppose it's a scientific study in which maybe there might be a chance that there might be an injury, you might have to keep an allocation for it, and that has to be told. Also, it has to be told very specifically. You cannot say you're going to get money to participate in the study and then later on say, but nothing happened to you, so you're not getting it. So the clarity on remuneration should be there. Let me quickly talk about how to submit a proposal for ethical clearance. Okay. Now, ethics committees are everywhere and they really scrutinize it. They give suggestions. They expect you to follow it in a certain manner. So make sure that in your research proposal, you write the research proposal well enough, showing respect and dignity to participants. You talk about their privacy. You talk about the benefits and the risks. You know, normally people say, that if I write the risk, they may say cancel the study. No, always have a line, a length of benefits and maybe fewer risks which are displayed, but balance them and show them. Have a sampling plan. And the capacity and the competence of a researcher are, one second. Sorry about this. Yes. And sampling plan. How are you going to select the sample? Whether it is fair. You know, there are random sampling always has a question. How did you select? And you keep on saying, I selected randomly. What randomly? When you know you want to select from a class of 100 students, what is random? You can just pick up somebody, but how will you write in your proposal? So then there are ways of doing random sampling. You can decide every third person will be asked, and that has to be described. The moment you say random sampling, you people will ask questions. How did you do random sampling? Is it that I stood on the road and asked, are you a student, participate in my study? So that sampling plan also has to be discussed. And the competence and capacity of a researcher is known by how the person writes, what the person's interest in research is, and whether they are following the protocols and procedures, particularly if you're dealing with younger children who are minors and vulnerable people like the aged or the lower socioeconomic group, which we spoke about. What will they check? How will they check respect and dignity? So just read this. Look for the language and how you've written it. When they check whether consent was obtained, they see the questionnaire. How have you asked the questions? For example, if I want to ask a person, my field is nutrition. So suppose I want to ask the person that how many times do you eat fried food? I cannot say you must be eating fried food a lot. How much do you eat? So how the question is asked, your questionnaire has to be ready and it has to be submitted to them. Check whether questions are culturally correct. There are certain questions you cannot ask in some cultures. For example, Hindus cannot be asked, do you eat beef? Right? So culturally correct questions have to be there, and check that the rights are protected. Again, whether there is a declaration for protection, whether there is the measures of risk, how to deal with risks is given, and if there is a direct benefit, whether it is being told. If I'm doing a psychology study, okay, and I'm telling the people that I'm going to ask you certain questions, and after certain questions, you will become a little more relaxed. If I'm making such a claim, I have to tell how. Correct? So direct benefit, if you're making direct benefit, show how you're going to get the direct benefit. Then you should not exclude a class of people. For example, you know that this study is going to benefit certain socioeconomic groups, but you say, no, but my study is only on higher socioeconomic group. Why should I include them? Don't do that. Include anybody who is going to benefit from the study. Make your objectives in such a manner that you're going to take people who need it. And sampling plan is checked whether your subjects are rightly selected. One classic example I'll give you. Whether it is any subject and you're doing on a certain age group. I decide I want to do it between 30 to 50-year-old people. What do I do with somebody who is 51? Come on, I need one person. Can I just put the age as 50 and put it? That is why the date of birth and the age is put. And then they see. So do not falsify. Stick to your sampling plan and say, this is exactly what it is going to be. And whether the investigator has written that there is the entire responsibility of the research is theirs. That is important. A principal investigator has to assure that this research which I am doing is my responsibility. You can't say I'm the principal investigator, but I'm not responsible because others are. You have a team, so you can't say my other team members are collecting information, right? And of course, whether sources are disclosed, whether commercial affiliations of financial interests were reported. For example, a company approaches me and says that you do research for us, we are giving you 50,000 rupees. I have to report it. I can't say 50,000 may I will spend 20,000 and 30,000 I'll pocket it. It has to be reported over here. And all national and international laws, regulation, codes related to the research which you have planned have to be known to you. Okay. Now, we have heard a lot and a lot of theory has been asked. But sir, now I want to ask how many participants we have and whether I can ask questions to them. As there's no response, let me just continue. So we have activities, and the first activity is 2 graduate students have made measurements on a new material. It is shown over here. And to prove their hypothesis, the result should lie on the curve only. But the 2 students are out of the curve. What do you think the people should do? You cannot move the points to lie on the curve because it is unethical to falsify data. And there should be reasons given as to what could be the reasons why they are out of the curve, and use statistical appropriate ways to consider removing them and then doing the statistical analysis. Next activity. So, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What is matter, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Continue. No problem.
Okay. So now let us look at this. A group of medical students has conducted a research on awareness of diabetes. Okay. Their research was recognized as the best undergraduate research. And later they submitted research paper to 2 different journals to see which journal publishes it. Can anybody tell me? It is unethical as it would be inadvertent double counting or inappropriate of results of a single study submitted in 2. This is something which is happening currently in India, where you find a lot of academicians are giving the same publication with the title changed. There are many who say that let me just change the title and give it to another journal. Absolutely unethical. Why? Just because we want a lengthy list of publications to ourselves, we cannot do it. Submit to one journal and wait for the response before you submit the same paper to another journal. Activity 3. So students are required to prepare a research proposal for their undergraduate program. So Nirmal developed the idea and discussed with a friend. And several months later, he found that his idea had been submitted as a research proposal by his friend without his knowledge. Can anybody say whether this is right or wrong? Or you can link to what I have said before. Can you hear me? Okay. I think I thought my net connection was going. So now this is unethical. Why is it unethical? Because you have not given credit to the person whose idea it is. This is where we talk of intellectual property rights. And this is 100% plagiarism, where you pick up and you give it to another person as my own research proposal. If at all you do it, you should discuss with the person that I'm using your idea and include the person as a co-author if you're publishing it. Okay. 4 friends decide to work on a research project, and one of them went abroad during the vacation and did not contribute to the research. The friends include all 4 names in a presentation to be made at a scientific congress. Does it sound that their friends are very kind and that they have said this happens when we give project work in groups? You find that 3 have done and 1 person has not done anything, and yet it is submitted with all the 4 names to us. So is this ethical? Is this kindness? Is this what it should be done? No. Only credit only to people who have actually intellectually contributed. So if you are submitting it, it should be authors, should be only the people who have really worked on it, and the one who never worked on it, his name should be put in acknowledgements, his or her name. That is the only way to keep their name, but not get the credit for it. Activity 5, let's look at this. A group of undergraduate students planned a research project in detecting fetal abnormalities in the 2nd trimester, while the ultrasound is done, while the sonography is done. And they collected data from the scan room without informing the mothers. Can we say this is ethical? Absolutely not. Why? Because informed consent not taken. Also, not only informed, there is no particular advantage or disadvantage to the mother. And that also has to be mentioned, that though we are taking it, don't worry, the patient is going to be unharmed. That has to be stated. Then, a group of undergraduate students collected data from rank officers regarding their working hours, salary, and the prevalence of high blood pressure. Are they under pressure? Are they all hypertension patients? And subsequently, the researchers gave the same data to another group who were needing the same data variables, who needed salary, who needed working hours, and you needed high blood pressure. Well, this is breach of ethics because you have conducted scientific misconduct. You have given that data to somebody else. You have not preserved the confidentiality. You have not respected your participants who probably wanted to be anonymous. Okay, here there's one question you can ask. You can say, no, I'll delete the name and I'll remove their affiliation, I'll give it. That still doesn't become right because you're giving your data to another person who might be having some other variables, it's just adding these 3 variables in it. Any type of fraud, fabrication, invention of data is misconduct. Plagiarism, copying data, taking somebody's data and writing on it text without the acknowledgement of source. Infringement of copyright comes for most of the time for writing, and publishing to different journals, all of it comes under scientific misconduct. Not informing your collaborator, including a colleague as an author on a paper, though the colleague has not made. This happens again in academics. We are doing the research and we say, oh no, I will include all their names. Let me do them a favor. They will get some API points in that. It is nice to be kind, but this is not scientific good conduct. What can you do for such things? You can help them. Tell them you do a little bit of work and start writing. I will help you write the paper. I will teach you how to write the paper. But just adding names, because this is a very good friend of mine who has not published a paper. In my paper, I'm putting the person as a second or a third name. Doesn't justify your kindness, doesn't get justified scientifically. Trimming your data, like I said, not reporting certain data. Statistical knowledge is necessary, whether it is a qualitative study or quantitative study. Your statistical technique has to be a proper one so that your research can be used, your results can be used for betterment of the society. And so, though a lot of statistical tests are for quantitative tests, you have to understand the statistical tests for qualitative data. And never bypass a review process. Now, when we are independent researchers, when I'm not a PhD student to go and show my guide, but having a mentor or having a senior person glance at it and review it before you announce the result is the correct thing to do. But why? Because if there are mistakes and you realize the mistakes, you will not get caught in anything. And so there's a little in India we are very insecure about our research. Somebody will take my data. Why should I show my review? Why should I show my HOD? Maybe it will go no. Keep aside all your insecurities. Be very firm on the ground. Get it reviewed by a senior person and then proceed fast. Now, why the insecurities have arisen is I have done my study in 2020. In 2021, I have analyzed the study. Now I have got some time. Now let me give this to my mentor. But I will write a paper only next year. Don't give the people opportunities to do that. As soon as the review comes, come on, start publishing your work. Give it away for publication. Give it away even anywhere. Let it get printed that this has been a research of yours. And therefore, keep aside these insecurities. I mentioned before, conduct a very, very good review of literature so that you're very firm with your results. Do not give the same research project to two graduates. I'll give you an example. There are times when you may say that I have two research students. I'm giving one the same research to do on men and the one same research to do on women. Not ideal. It is just not ideal to replicate. You should have some changes in your objectives. Unless one whole research proposal is there and you are only recruiting them to do your data collection for you in a different manner, that's a different thing. But calling two students, giving the same research project and say you do it is not the right thing. Don't overwork, neglect, or exploit your research students if you all are research guides, because research is a process which is slow. No research can happen in a hurry. I can't say proposal submitted, data collected, and in 3 months everything done. That is not research. Never make derogatory comments and making significant deviations after your ethics committee approves and yet you have done very different things. Shouldn't do it without informing the committee. Suppose you find that this type of suggestion I am using, but it is not helping my data collection, go back to them and request them for permission and then go ahead. I think I will not go on about this because I will still have a lot to talk. Do not sabotage somebody else's work. And in science, in clinical science, this is important, where something new is popularized, though the effects, the significance and the impact or the benefit might be very little. I want to talk about ethical issues in India. And why do I want to talk about that? Because research ethics differs from with different methods as well as from different places. Let's take a simple societal example. A Christian lady in white is a bride, whereas a Hindu lady in white may be a widow. So we know that cultures in India vary from state to state and vary from city to city. If I am doing a sociology study or a women's study or even a psychology study in different cultures, I need to know everything about the culture. So in India, when I'm doing a study in Maharashtra, and the same study, if I try to go and do it somewhere in Tamil Nadu, it may not work because my culture is going to be different. Their culture is different. I have to understand their culture. I may have to change my objectives depending on their culture. Come what may, India, because it's such a beautiful, diverse country and a huge, large country, all researchers should give utmost importance to cultural diversity and religiosity of the country. So we must work within a framework for customs, traditions, languages, caste, creed, colors, small communities, any region. You are going to, let's talk of Maharashtra. Maharashtra is a beautiful state, but North Maharashtra, it differs from South Maharashtra, Central Maharashtra differs from the West or the East Maharashtra, and we have to know all these things. Wide economical knowledge and technological gap, education level gap, all this has to be known before you start your research and you start selecting samples for research. So, apart from these ethical considerations, simple characteristics. You should have good knowledge about all the characteristics of the participants that you choose. And finally, of course, consider the rights of participants. General ethics is going to be a repetitive thing. If you want, I will send the PPT to be given to participants. But I don't think I want to talk on this. Quite a lot of. One important point I will talk on over here is we all do one large study and then we say from this study, from my PhD thesis, I can make 6 papers. That is called salami publication or slicing. And this is unethical. Why? Because our hypothesis is same, our method will be same, and our population is same. So what do we do now? If you want to publish from your large study, what will you do? If your study has got 10 objectives, make a paper of 2 objectives. Still, your method and your population is the same. So, if you've done it on an entire society, take away women data and make a paper. The methods will be the same. But methods are okay because if I'm replicated the study by reading some other studies, my method may match with somebody else's anyway. But be careful about these things. And this I'm saying is because the moment we finish a research project, we say, come on, 4 papers are done. My work is done. Now I don't think for another year. This can get caught and you have to be very careful with it. And okay, let me ask you all a question. Which is likely to involve serious ethical concerns? In-person interviews, mail-in questionnaires, observation in public, analyzing data from a secondary source, or content analysis. Can anybody give me an answer for this? I will say all. All these methods have serial ethical concerns, and if we do not inform the participants, then we immediately the first step is going to be breach of ethics. So Whether you select interviews, whether you select sending questionnaires in mail, whether you're going to stand and observe, or you're collecting secondary data from other research studies, or you're doing content analysis of any one topic, all of it will have serious ethical concerns if you have not designed your research or your report in an ethical manner. I don't know whether I should go for case study. Okay. My question is, I removed. Okay. A case study, again, in social sciences, you have a lot of case studies. Questionnaires, we are not going to talk about, they can be standard and interview techniques. But case studies. What is a case study? An in-depth study of a person, group, or an event can be used in a wide variety of subjects, scientific subjects, social sciences, humanities. Everybody can do case studies. And the hope of the case study is that by taking one detailed case study, we can generalize it to many others. Benefits? It allows the researchers to investigate things that may be difficult, helps to collect a whole lot of information. And sometimes you get rare and unusual cases which you would not have got in a general study or a focus group study. But most important, it helps, taking a case study helps to develop a hypothesis for a different type of a study. Some limitations: cannot be generalized to a large population, cannot demonstrate cause and effect, may not be scientifically rigorous, and definitely may lead to bias. Very, very conscious effort has to be made that we are not getting biased by what we are getting in a case study. Types: collective, where a group of individuals is there; descriptive, where you take fewer subjects, you observe and you describe more; explanatory, causal, because of this happened; exploratory, can I just search in this age group what are the maturity changes that have happened? We know that children mature at different age groups, but what are those maturity changes? So that is a exploratory study where you do a basic case and then you develop your hypothesis. Instrumental, when individual or group allow the researchers to understand more. So I might have after doing a case study, my understanding of that particular case or certain problems is improved. And intrinsic, when the person has got a personal interest in the case. Now, having a personal interest in the case can be argued as, is it ethical or not? But if your objectives are clear, you can still have a personal interest as long as you do not allow a bias to develop. Writing a case study, prospective. Prospective means after collecting information from a group, what might be the outcome. Retrospective, I'm going to study their past history, their past information, and then I'm going to follow it. The most classic example is, let us look at about yes, we can look at this. What has happened in 1980s to pregnant women and the children today? So you take their history and you look at what has happened to that age group of children today, who are adults, of course, right? So the data can be got from archival records, direct observations, documents. Every document, a newspaper article, letters, diaries which are kept, journals from people, interviews, social media today, and participant observation, physical artifacts. All these can be used to write a case study. And this is where I'm going to stop now because I have another session and I don't want to start overlapping something in the next session. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, I will take questions if there are questions. I'm ready to take any questions.
Okay. Dear participant, okay, thank ma'am. If you have any questions, any queries, any doubt about this session, or this topic, participant, please you can ask. तुम्ही मराठीमध्ये देखील विचारू शकता प्रश्न, तुम्हाला इंग्लिश मध्ये नाही विचारता आलं तर. पार्टिसिपंट, हॅलो.
हो, मराठीमध्ये पण चालेल, मी मराठीत उत्तर देईन.
यू कॅन आस्क इन मराठी, नो प्रॉब्लेम. पार्टिसिपंट,
आता काही प्रश्न नसतील तर सर, त्यांनी जरी प्रश्न नंतर विचारले तर उद्याच्या सेशन मध्ये पाहिजे तर थोडेसे ते कव्हर करता येतील.
चालेल चालेल, उद्याचे सेशन आहेच आपलं 11:40 ला. चालेल, काही प्रॉब्लेम चालेल. ओके, थँक्यू मॅम फॉर युअर व्हॅल्युएबल lectures on ethics in social science and research. So many concepts you have cleared for the new researcher, MPhil, PhD research fellow. So I am once again thanks to our institute and our principal, Dr. Madhavji Gavhane sir, and total our REC committee, our technical staffs. Once again, I am very, very thanks to you. Now, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
We will meet tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
Okay. पंचाल सर,
बोला की सर.
11:40 ला स्टार्ट करता, क्लोज कर.
हो,
11:40.
11:40. ओके ठीक आहे सर.
ओके.